Welcome to Distress to Joyful, Bailey's Way. I'm your host, Bailey Reber, here to enlighten you and the rest of the world about one of the most misunderstood mental disorders out there, bipolar disorder. Each week, we're going to learn more about my personal journey with the disorder while leaving you enriched with new information on how you can help better yourself as well as those around you. Hey friends! So this episode is going to be a little longer than previous episodes because I realized that there's a lot to go over. Like, a lot. And just a warning, I'm probably going to get a little emotional doing this because today I'm hitting some pretty tough topics, including a very toxic relationship that I dealt with in the past. Quick announcement. I know I opened up the room and mentioned that I'm looking for people to interview on the show soon. And I'm still looking to do so. Don't worry. Our first guest is going to be my friend Laura. But guests are not going to be coming on to the show until season 2. At the start of 2021. There's apparently a lot more legwork when adding a guest and doing so virtually, and I'm still trying to, sort all of that out. Technology isn't exactly my strong suit, and so it's likely going to take me until the end of the year to get this all figured out. Go figure. But I'm going to post a sign-up link soon in the Facebook group and on the Instagram page and also on my blog. So just be on the lookout for those. It'll just be like a sign-up link and it's going to send you a questionnaire, all that kind of good stuff. And then you can also send the sign-up link to anyone that you know who you think might be interested in appearing on the show, who's got, some sort of story of a mental health journey, or if they've currently got a mental health disorder themselves. Just to be a bit more specific, I'm kind of looking for people who have different mental health issues than what I have. So I would love to interview somebody who's got bipolar disorder as well, because everybody experiences it differently. So don't get me wrong. If you've got bipolar disorder and you'd like to be on the show, please, by all means, sign up and we'll see about interviewing you too. But I also want to make sure that everyone's aware that I'm not just looking for people like me. I'm looking for people who are dealing with different types of mental disorders that we can shed light on what it's actually like to live with them. So I am looking forward to hearing from y'all and having you on the show. Now, let's get started with today's episode. So we're going to jump into the biggest topic of today first, and that's going to be mood swings and the intensity of which those of us who have bipolar disorder feel emotions. First of all, those of us with bipolar disorder feel emotions at a much higher intensity than regular people. I'm pretty sure I've mentioned that before, but in case I haven't, one more time. Those of us with bipolar disorder feel emotions at a much higher intensity than regular people. This can sometimes feel scary to others, especially when the emotion being felt is an uncomfortable one like anger or sadness or fear. And what's wild to me is that there have been times when I have been so through the roof happy, and everyone around me is just taking it in and absorbing all of that energy, and they're just loving it. Just loving it. But if the circumstance is to change, and I start feeling frustrated or sad, angry, scared, whatever it may be, then everyone will just slowly start to disappear as quickly as possible. But I think it just baffles me that people can't seem to tell that the intensity of which I feel emotions is much, much stronger than what they feel when it's a good emotion I'm feeling, like happiness. I don't even want to call it a good emotion. I feel like that's not the right way to categorize it. I feel like happiness is a positive emotion. Maybe that's what I should go with. Yeah. So when I feel positive emotions, people don't notice that I feel them much stronger than everybody else in the room, right? But as soon as the emotion turns into an uncomfortable one, everyone quickly notices how intense it is for me and they just start running for the goddamn hills. And I will tell you from experience that this is one of the loneliest feelings when it comes to dealing with bipolar disorder. Y'all, for years, I hung out with people who weren't real friends. These people were only there for the good times because, everyone loves being around someone whose happiness is contagious, right? But as soon as the bad times rolled on in, they would disappear and not return until I was happy again. This would leave me feeling unwanted, which only lengthened the depression cycles when they would come around. Thankfully, the people that I have chosen to surround myself with now are here no matter what. The good, the bad, and the ugly. And being open about my bipolar disorder with them has made all, and I mean all, of my relationships much, much easier. When it comes to romantic relationships, when one of the two partners has bipolar disorder, the biggest thing that the other partner needs to understand is this. The intensity of a particular mood, especially uncomfortable ones like anger, sadness, fear, annoyance, etc., are not always directed at you when the person with bipolar disorder is speaking or feeling these. And that sounded a little bit confusing, especially when I, said that out loud. So let me give you a real life example. If I come to my boyfriend Monish feeling angry about something that happened at work, the tone of my voice will likely be expressing the anger that I'm feeling while speaking about the event that happened. Now, the intensity of which I feel angry is usually so much that while I'm not at all mad at Monish, he can sometimes feel as if I'm mad at him because of how I'm speaking, along with how my body language is at the moment. And sometimes my bad mood can put him into a bad mood because the intensity of which I feel things can sometimes overtake the other emotions of those around me. And to clarify, there is nothing wrong with how intense I feel emotions. It's something I cannot change about myself, and anybody else experiencing the same, it is something that you cannot change. So please, don't try to change it and don't think negatively about it. But what your partner needs to understand is that they don't need to take things personally when they're being vented to in an angry tone. And for Monish, it's taken him a little time to adjust. But because I've been very, very open with him about my bipolar disorder and how it can affect me at times, he's starting to learn and kind of understand, okay, she's mad about what happened. She's not mad at me. And he has to constantly remind himself this. And it's a work in progress, guys. Life is a work in progress. If you're not growing, you're dying. So this is something that can be figured out and can be worked with and lived around. So with that being said, if you happen to be like me and you've been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, please do yourself a solid and do not hide it from your friends and especially not from your partner. Whew! I learned the hard way that hiding this big piece of me does not work. Keep on listening and you'll hear that horrific tale in just a little bit. Let's go ahead and move on. So the next topic is going to be productivity swings during manic highs versus the can't get out of bed swings during depressive lows. What to expect as a significant other to somebody who has got bipolar disorder, and how to help the person you love when needed. So let's start with the easy one. Let's start with productive highs. And let's just be real here. Guys, these are fucking awesome. Like, when I'm in one of these phases, I will just jump out of bed in the morning and I will rush to start getting all of the things done. And by all the things, I mean all the things. Like, I'll go work out. I will make breakfast. I will do the dishes and the laundry. I will make the bed. I will grocery shop. I will start a new sewing project. I'll finish writing a podcast episode. All of this before heading to work at 12 p.m. Like, that's an insane amount of boxes checked off my to-do list before noon. Am I right? The energy literally just flows through me during these times, and I love it. I love getting all of these things done. But then sometime afterwards, all of this will come down into a depressive low where I will literally do nothing. I'll have to force myself out of bed. Showering and getting ready for the day will seem just like too much. Like, it's just too much to do. And making myself breakfast, yeah, you can forget that, because I might not even eat that day being in this kind of state. And these lows obviously suck for me, the person going through them. But it can also suck for your partner, man. Phases like this mean that basically nothing productive will be completed except for what is absolutely necessary. Like going to work and hopefully getting food in my body, right? Laundry is going to be left dirty on the floor. Dishes will probably pile up in the sink. And that bed is definitely not getting made. Which means that my partner might have to pick up on the slack for me. And if they're not expecting that, it could really throw them off. Especially if they have no clue that depression means that I will stay in bed as much as I need, while also sometimes crying for no real reason at all. And it kind of sounds like I'm going to tell you to make sure your partner is aware of your bipolar disorder. But seriously, for real though. Oh my goodness, there's a TV show. There's an episode about this girl who's got bipolar disorder. Anne Hathaway stars in it. I am going to find that episode and post it in the show notes. I think it's on Amazon Prime TV. But anyways, you have to watch it because seriously, it shows like what I just told you about. It literally shows it in this episode. So for those of you who are visual learners like me and would like to get a really clear picture of what it's like for somebody to, go through cycles of bipolar disorder, you have to watch this episode. I wish I knew the name off the top of my head. This is when I wish I had a partner sitting in this small little closet next to me where I could be like, hey, what's the name of this episode? Please Google it while I continue the recording here. Or I could be like, hey, you know this episode. You've seen it with me. Remind me the name. But no, I am sitting in a tiny closet by myself. So that's not happening. So it'll be in the show notes. I promise. I'll mention it in the Facebook group as well. All of those links you can find in the episode description. But the point of this is being that These are some things that if you're dating someone who has bipolar disorder, you have to expect that these kinds of things are going to occur. They are. And again, there is nothing wrong with these. I go through times where I'm super, super productive and times where I'm not. And everyone in life goes through things like that too, just on a much smaller scale typically than those of us who have bipolar disorder. That's all. Back to before I got distracted about the episode of that show I need you to watch. For real. Go watch it. But on the topic of making sure your partner is aware of your bipolar disorder, guys, I'm being dead serious with that because, my boyfriend Monish, he is literally an angel to me when I need it most. And he's that way because he knows. He knows that this is going to happen. He doesn't always know when, but he's prepared. He knows what to expect when I start to feel low. He knows how to help me when I need it and, where to step in, where to back off. But he's had to learn those things. We've had to grow in this together. But had he not known about bipolar disorder, it could really just shock him and freak him out. So keep that in mind. And that's also going to be talked about here next in the unhealthy relationship that I was in about 3 or so years ago. And we're going to call this guy Bob. Yeah, his name's going to be Bob. So, the prologue to this relationship with Bob is that it started out on the basis of sex. Something that I absolutely do not recommend. Like 10 out of 10, do not recommend that you start out a relationship and, try to kindle something if it began on the premises of sex. Holy moly. Okay. So I kind of, withheld the fact that I've got bipolar disorder from Bob until I moved in with him, which that's a whole nother thing inside of itself. But when I moved in with him, I had to tell him about the bipolar disorder because that involved me bringing meds into his home, which he was bound to question. So at that point, I just kind of had to tell him. And guys, maybe I should give you a little more detail on the prologue. I feel like that's kind of deserved in order to understand where this story is going. But basically, Bob and I were friends with benefits. If you're not quite sure what that is, please Google it using Urban Dictionary. And we just hung out and had sex, and that was about it. Just friends having sex, yada yada. Well, then there was a bit of an emotional attachment that got involved, and we started actually dating, and he convinced me to move in with him, which I thought was smart at the time. I mean, gosh, I was 23 at the time, and I knew everything in the whole damn world, and I knew what I was getting myself into, obviously. And so, I moved in with him thinking it would be an easy way to save money. We're now starting to officially be dating after a couple years of just, messing around. Save money living with him instead of living by myself. Yada, yada. Well, it had probably been 2 or so years of on and off seeing each other when this finally occurred, where I made the decision to move in with him and we made our relationship an official thing, which meant it was time to, be vulnerable and tell him I've got bipolar disorder. Well, not long after moving in with him is when the emotionally abusive side of Bob kind of really started to come out. And it was something that I didn't really understand until I escaped from that relationship. And when I was vulnerable with him about my mental health disorder, he ended up using it as a means to tear me down and try to control me. And y'all, I can vividly recall instances when I would be upset or angry, and it might not have been at him. It might have been upset and angry about things that happened at work or whatever. And I can remember him literally screaming at me, "Did you take your crazy pills today?" Yep, my crazy pills. That's what he called my medication, because to him, my bipolar disorder meant that I'm crazy. And there are so many more awful things that occurred in this relationship, like him calling me fat and telling me to lay off the mac and cheese in front of my friends. Or the fact that he manipulated me into doing things for him, like all of the household chores, while I also worked 2 jobs. And one of those jobs that I was working was actually just meant to be a secondary source of income to help build a savings account. But then later, probably about a month into living with him, Bob decided to take it upon himself to take some extensive time off of work, unpaid, since I had extra funds that could pay his portion of the bills. Guys, I'm telling you about these things because this relationship that I had with Bob was not at all healthy. Oh my gosh, not at all healthy. Y'all, relationships are built on the foundations of love and trust. Neither of these things were present here. So Bob took it upon himself to use vulnerable topics I spoke to him about, like my bipolar disorder or the fact that I had gained a significant amount of weight, and he liked, to call me fat in front of people and in private at home and all kinds of things. And then afterwards, after making me feel bad about myself, however he could at the time, he would do this thing called gaslighting. I don't know if y'all have ever heard of gaslighting, but gaslighting is a narcissistic tool where after they make you feel really bad about yourself, they'll try to say lots of things like really, really good and try to build you up. And they'll make it seem like they'll just pump air into your head. Like, oh, you're so beautiful. Oh, you're the smartest woman I've ever met in my life. You're so hardworking. I love how gorgeous you are. Like all kinds of stuff like that. They say these things to try to make you feel good through them. As in, like, they're the reason why you feel good. And if they're the reason that you feel good, then you won't leave them because they make you feel good. You see how that adds up? And the negativity he was thrusting upon me first would then be followed by the gaslighting. He would make me feel bad, then make me feel good, and make me feel bad, and make me feel good. All of this was being circulated through me, while also just not being a healthy human being either. I mean, I wasn't eating healthy and I wasn't exercising during this time either, which really helped to spring on depression, plus the amount of alcohol I was drinking at the time back then. With Bob thrust in it, this was literally like a tornado shitstorm waiting to just destroy every ounce of me. Like, seriously, guys. But luckily, this tear me apart, gaslighting up and down ploy of Bob's didn't work for long. And I was able to escape the relationship. And by escape, I mean like literally like escape. As in, I have absolutely no contact with him whatsoever. I moved out of his house, had to rent a room from strangers for a while. Like, wow, that was... Oh, man, that was some not fun times. I'm telling y'all about this because I want anyone listening to understand that the things that I put up with from Bob were 100% not okay. But I did not have to put up with them, which is why one day I found the strength to leave. Just to leave Bob and all of that unhealthiness behind. And I want to reiterate the fact that if anyone out there is struggling with something similar, where you're in an unhealthy relationship with someone who is doing anything of the sorts like Bob had done to me, please know that you are strong, you are beautiful, and you are worthy. And you can get out of that mess. You are not required to stay anywhere, especially if it is not serving you or doing anything positive for your life. I wasn't going to mention this, but I feel like I probably should at this point because of what I've already spilled out. But when I did have the courage to finally break up with Bob, when I realized I had had enough, I didn't deserve the way he was acting towards me, he actually kicked me out of his house. So I moved in with him. It was a place that he was already renting. My lease I was able to get out of, and I moved in with him. All really great decisions that 23-year-old Bailey made. Anyways, so when I got the courage to leave him, he and I at first decided, okay, he'd give me a week to find a new place, which looking back now, that is 100% unacceptable. A week for me to find a new place to live, even though I got rid of literally all of my stuff, my furniture and everything I could need to have my own place. I got rid of all that so I could move in with Bob. Well, then actually I woke up the next morning after I broke up with him, and he decided to start screaming at me, telling me I had to leave that day, that he was going to throw all of my stuff out on the curb if I didn't start finding a place that day. So I actually had to take off work for, I think it was 2 or 3 days in order to figure out my situation and sort out what I was going to do. And I ended up sleeping on my friend's couch. My friend Matthew, oh, thank you. I've thanked you so many times before in the past when this happened, but once again, Matthew, thank you. And Emily, who was your roommate at the time, for allowing me to sleep on y'all's couch for that week or two until I found a new place. And I had nothing. I had no furniture. I had my clothes, my craft supplies, and that was about it. And I slept on the couch, and then I found a room to rent, and it was a completely furnished room here in Houston. It was a set price. It was like $600, all bills paid. Yeah, I moved in with strangers, but it worked out because it got me what I needed, held me over. It was cheap. I lived somewhere with furniture that I didn't have to pay for a year while I saved up money and got into my own place again. Again, I'm telling you this story as a moment of encouragement for anybody who needs it. If you or someone you know is trapped in a very unhealthy relationship, just know that you are strong enough to get out. I believe in you. When there is a will, there is a way. Trust me. Let's go ahead and move on to a healthy relationship of mine, and so we can explore the differences of the two. So Monish and I met online, and we went on 3 whole dates before he even kissed me once. And he's probably going to hate that I just spoke about that fact, for all of the world to hear. But honestly, I'm really so glad that he waited to kiss me like he did. It was totally worth the wait. And once Monish and I decided to make our relationship official, as in delete our dating apps and only focus on each other, I made damn sure to mention my bipolar disorder as quickly as possible. This is a huge piece of my life, and the sooner that he knew about it, the sooner that he could learn about how it works and what to expect. I didn't want any surprises to be thrown at him from me, And I felt that it was very, very important for him to know about this part of my life before we continued to further our relationship. And I'm not going to lie, it was absolutely nerve-wracking when I told him. But y'all, if you tell someone something about yourself that's never going to go away, like anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, you name it. There's so many things out there. But if you tell them something like this and they choose to walk away from you, that is a reflection on how poor of a character they are. And to be clear, I didn't think that Monish was going to run for the hills. I mean, he waited 3 whole dates to even kiss me because he wanted to make sure that I knew that he was serious about me. But because of my past history with Bob, some fear set in. I went ahead and musked up the courage and I was like, you know what? It's like ripping off a Band-Aid. Seriously, guys, it's like ripping off a Band-Aid. Just sit him down, tell him up front, get it over with, right? And if you haven't guessed, Monish embraced it and he responded so sweetly with, oh God, I'm tearing up. I'm totally tearing up. I don't know anyone who has bipolar disorder, but I'm willing to learn and help you where I can. Y'all, my heart melted when he said this, and I cried so many happy tears, like I am awkwardly now in a closet by myself. But seriously, I cried so many happy tears when he said that, because that was such a relief to know that I could share this part of me with him and not be judged, and it won't be used against me like it had in the past. So, so that's huge. And as I mentioned earlier, Monish, he gets that my emotions aren't always directed at him. It's still a work in progress, but he's getting a lot better at recognizing the differences between when I'm angry at something going on in my life versus when I'm actually angry at him. And when it comes to the ups and downs, he has learned that they're just part of me, and he knows how to help me with them when I need it. He's happy to pick up the slack with dishes and laundry, and he'll even cook for me when I don't feel up to it. It's really, really nice when he does that for me. And he's even brought me breakfast in bed on days when I've struggled to, get up in the mornings. And then when I'm on an upswing, I always try my best to do more of the household chores in order just to make up for the downswings. He doesn't keep score of what he does for me, and I don't keep score of the things that I do for him. But instead, we both do the things that the other needs when needed, because we love each other and we want the best for one another. And this is how relationships are supposed to work. You are a team, and you do things for each other because you care and love each other. Let's move on to some do's and don'ts real quick, and then we're going to wrap up for today. So don't take things personally when your partner has been having a bad day. If they come in angry, slamming doors, whatever the case may be, understand that it likely has nothing to do with you, and instead listen to them and ask what you can do to help. If they need to be alone, if they need to vent to you, if they need to go on a walk, whatever the case may be, ask them what they need and be sure to act on what they need. If they say they need to vent to you while going on a walk, do it with them. Don't just ask them how you can help and then just don't help. That's blows my mind. Don't get upset with them on days when they're low and they're struggling to help with daily household tasks. Instead, pick up the slack where you can and do it from the heart. That means don't hold it against them later or keep score. Do it because you love them and because they need you. And also because you need a clean house, because clutter causes stress. So do your dishes and your laundry. Okay, and don't number 3 before we wrap up for today. Don't try to tell them what to do to help when they're in a low. In my experience, bossing people around tends to get the opposite results. Like telling somebody not to drink alcohol, they're probably going to go off and drink alcohol just because you told them not to, right? So instead, gently encourage them to eat a healthy meal, to exercise, to meditate, and participate in whatever activities that will bring them joy and to help them get out of their depressive slump. You might have to give some gentle pushing from time to time. Like, I will tell you, in all honesty, when I'm feeling low, sometimes I do not want to work out. I know it will help me feel better. Because exercise gives you endorphins, and endorphins make you happy. Thank you, Elle Woods. But sometimes when I'm really, really low, it's hard to even think about doing that. And I'll need a gentle push from somebody else. A commitment that I already said I was going to CG, which is my Camp Gladiator boot camp. Or, somebody dragging me out of the house to go on a walk or on a run with them, something. And sometimes, if you've got a partner with bipolar disorder, they might need a gentle push from you in those areas too. You might even need to offer to do the things with them, like walk with them, cook a healthy meal and eat it with them, that kind of things. Just take the time to figure out what your partner needs and how to help them without telling them what to do. I'm going to tell you what to do. You don't tell them what to do. Okay? Got it. Alrighty. Well, next week's episode, we're going to move into part 3, which will be family relations and bipolar disorder. This one, not going to lie, is going to be a little bit tough. I'm honestly going to kind of talk about my experience with bipolar disorder and my family on a little more detailed level of how things were handled and how I wish they would have been handled. It's kind of like the healthy versus unhealthy from earlier. We're going to go through that topic and be very, very vulnerable and learn a lot. And I hope that it's going to help anybody else out there who's listening with their current family situation. I really, really do. Just a reminder, if you enjoyed this episode, take a screenshot of it and post it on social media. I would really, really appreciate if you would tag Distress to Joyful Bailey's Way. The more we get the word out, the more people I have options to interview for. That did not work. That sentence did not work. Let's try that one more time. The more people who are listening, the bigger pool of interviewees I will have of interesting people to talk to on the show. Again, be on the lookout for that sign-up link. It'll be coming out soon. Also, don't forget to give me a little rating or a review. I would really, really, really appreciate that from you. So until next time, take it easy, stay grateful, and be joyful. Bye!